It began innocently, the way many winter memories do, with laughter and numb fingers and the promise of hot tea waiting inside. The first heavy snowfall of the season arrived overnight, transforming the small Canadian town into a quiet white world. Trees bent under the weight of snow, fences disappeared, and the streets looked untouched and new. That morning the family stepped outside together, parents wrapped in thick coats, their young daughter hopping excitedly through the drifts, and decided to build a snowman in the front yard. It stood near the driveway, slightly crooked, with a scarf tied loosely around its neck and two dark stones pressed in for eyes. They posed for photos, brushed snow from their gloves, and went back inside, never thinking that something so ordinary could become terrifying. The next morning, the mother noticed it first. While pouring coffee, she glanced out the kitchen window and frowned. The snowman looked closer. At first, she laughed at herself. Snow can shift, she reasoned. Maybe it had partially melted or collapsed. But when she stepped outside, boots crunching loudly in the frozen air, she realized the truth was harder to explain. The snowman was intact, perfectly intact, and it now stood several feet closer to the house than it had the day before. There were no footprints in the snow, no marks, no drag lines, no disturbances of any kind. They joked about neighborhood kids. Someone must be playing a prank. Still, the father moved the snowman back to its original spot, pressing it firmly into the snow and smoothing the ground around it so any movement would be obvious. That night, the temperature dropped far below freezing. The wind howled through the trees, rattling the windows, and snow fell steadily until the world outside disappeared into darkness. In the morning, the daughter screamed. The snowman stood just outside the living room window. It hadn't fallen, it hadn't broken, it hadn't even tilted. It was closer, far closer than before, its stone eyes now level with the glass. The scarf fluttered gently in the wind, though there were still no footprints beneath it. The snow around the base was smooth and untouched, as if the ground itself had decided to grow the snowman there overnight. Fear settled into the house quietly, like cold seeping through walls. The father circled the snowman, searching for signs of tampering. Nothing. The mother pulled the curtains closed, her hands shaking more than she wanted to admit. The daughter refused to go near the windows. That afternoon, the father dismantled the snowman completely, breaking it apart with a shovel and scattering the snow across the yard until there was nothing left but an empty white field. That night, no one slept well. Sometime before dawn, the power went out. The house plunged into darkness, and the sudden silence felt heavy, unnatural. The mother lay awake, listening to the sound of her own breathing when she felt it, that uncomfortable sensation of being watched. She told herself it was fear playing tricks on her mind. Still, she turned her head slowly toward the window. The snowman was back. It stood closer than ever before, its shape slightly wrong this time. The head was tilted, as if in curiosity. The stones that formed its eyes were arranged unevenly, giving it an expression that felt disturbingly like a smile. Frost crept along the edges of the glass, framing its face. Snow drifted down in slow, steady sheets, but beneath the snowman, the ground remained perfect and smooth. In a shaking voice, she woke her husband. They did not go outside this time. By morning, the storm had passed. Sunlight revealed the snowman standing inches from the house, so close that its frozen surface nearly touched the wall. The father finally called the police, embarrassed by how the story sounded even as he told it. An officer arrived, walked the perimeter, and frowned at the lack of footprints. He suggested sleepwalking, stress, maybe even carbon monoxide exposure. Before leaving, he helped knock the snowman down, laughing awkwardly as if humor could make the situation normal again. That night, the family set up a motion-activated camera facing the front yard. The footage showed nothing. Hours of recording passed with only drifting snow and shadows from swaying branches. At exactly 3:12 a.m., the camera glitched, the image distorted for less than a second. When it stabilized, the snowman was suddenly closer to the house, mid-yard, without ever appearing to move. No blur, no transition. One frame it was farther away, the next it was nearer. By the time morning came, it stood directly outside the daughter's bedroom window. They packed immediately, clothes, documents, anything they could grab. As they pulled out of the driveway, the mother looked back one last time. The snowman stood watching the house, head tilted, stones dark against the white. For a brief moment she thought she saw moisture beneath one of its eyes, like melting snow or a tear. Neighbors later said the house remained empty for weeks, then months. One evening, after another heavy snowfall, someone noticed something in the yard. A snowman stood near the road facing the house. There were no footprints leading to it, and no one ever saw who built it. By spring, when the snow finally melted, the snowman was gone. What remained were barefoot human footprints in the mud, leading away from the house and disappearing into the trees. The hotel was supposed to be closed for the winter. It stood at the edge of a nearly abandoned town in Eastern Europe, its cracked facade half buried in snow, its windows dark and lifeless. Once it had been a popular stop for travelers crossing the region, but declining tourism and brutal winters slowly drained it of life. By 2015, only a single caretaker visited occasionally to check the building. During one of the coldest winters on record, rumors began to circulate among locals that something inside the hotel refused to freeze. It started with the heating system. Despite being completely shut down to save costs, one section of the building consistently showed higher temperatures. Utility inspectors blamed faulty sensors at first, but when technicians checked, they found the readings accurate. The warmth always came from the same place, the third floor, room 307. Workers sent to investigate complained of unease the moment they reached the third floor. The corridor was always bitterly cold, the air sharp enough to sting the lungs, frost clinging to the walls and spreading across the floor like thin white veins. Yet standing near room 307 felt different. The air changed. It wasn't hot, but it wasn't cold either. It felt like stepping into a breath someone had just exhaled. One evening, a maintenance worker named Pavel was sent to unlock the room and document its condition. He was experienced, practical, and not easily frightened. He joked on the radio about ghost stories as he climbed the stairs, his boots echoing loudly in the empty building. When he reached the third floor, the joke stopped. The corridor lights flickered weakly, and his breath fogged the air, except near one door. Room 307 was slightly open. A thin line of warm yellow light spilled into the frozen hallway, cutting across the frost-covered floor. Pavel paused, suddenly aware of how silent the hotel was. No wind, no creaking pipes, just stillness. He pushed the door open wider. Warm air washed over him. Inside, the room looked untouched. The bed was neatly made, the curtains drawn halfway, and the desk lamp glowed softly. The bathroom mirror was fogged, as if someone had recently taken a hot shower. Pavel felt a deep, irrational certainty that he was not alone, though he could see no one. He radioed in, reporting the strange conditions, then stepped fully inside. That was the last transmission anyone ever received from him. Security footage showed Pavel entering the room at 9:42 p.m. The camera outside room 307 recorded the door slowly swinging shut behind him. It never opened again that night. When he failed to report back, police were called. They searched the hotel room by room. Room 307 was locked from the inside when they arrived. When they finally forced it open, the warmth was gone. The room was freezing, identical to every other room. No signs of struggle, no signs Pavel had ever been there. His body was found 3 days later in the basement boiler room, frozen solid. The autopsy revealed something deeply unsettling. His body temperature at the time of death was abnormally high, as if he had overheated before freezing. Doctors couldn't explain how that was possible in a building with no heat. After that, the hotel was officially sealed. But the warmth didn't stop. Thermal imaging drones, later flown over the building during winter nights, consistently showed a single glowing square on the third floor. Room 307. Always warmer than its surroundings, always present. Occasionally, people passing by reported seeing light in the window. Others claimed the sound of running water echoed from the building on nights when temperatures dropped below -20. Once, a group of teenagers dared each other to enter the hotel. They made it as far as the third floor before running out screaming, swearing they heard breathing behind the door. Years passed, snowstorms came and went, pipes burst, roof sections collapsed. Yet room 307 remained structurally untouched, preserved like a memory the building refused to let go of. One winter, a homeless man was found sheltering in the lobby. He told police he avoided the third floor because it felt alive. He said the room whispered at night, promising warmth, safety, rest. When officers escorted him out, they noticed faint wet footprints on the frozen stairs leading upward, bare feet. They stopped just outside room 307. The hotel was demolished the following spring. When workers tore down the third floor, they found something no blueprint accounted for. Behind room 307's back wall was a sealed-off space, small, airless and hidden. Inside were signs someone had been there for a very long time. Scratches on the walls, old clothing fused to the floor by mold and heat, and a mirror, cracked and blackened. Its surface still faintly fogged despite the cold air rushing in. After the demolition, the warmth finally vanished. But people say that on the coldest winter nights, when the wind is still and the snow falls just right, the empty lot where the hotel once stood feels strangely warm. The first snowfall arrived earlier than expected that year, thick and heavy, swallowing sound and color until the world felt unreal. Lars had lived alone in the cabin for nearly a decade, far from the nearest village, far from people. He liked the silence. Winter usually brought peace. No visitors, no footsteps, no reminders that the rest of the world still existed. When he opened the door that morning, the snow reached halfway up his boots, pristine and untouched, stretching from the trees to his porch like a blank page. That was when he saw the footprints. They began at the edge of the forest, a single line of deep human impressions pressed cleanly into the fresh snow. They led straight toward his cabin. Lars frowned, his breath fogging the air as he followed them with his eyes. What made his stomach tighten wasn't that someone had come, but that the footprints stopped at his front door. There were no prints leading away. He laughed it off at first. A hiker, maybe, someone lost who had turned back another way. Still, he stepped outside and circled the cabin. The snow was untouched everywhere else. No signs of struggle, no second path, just those footprints ending inches from the wooden door where he now stood. He swept them away with his boot and went back inside. That night, the temperature dropped sharply. The wind moved through the trees like something breathing. Lars sat by the fire, listening to the old cabin creak and settle until sleep finally claimed him. Sometime before dawn, he woke suddenly, heart pounding, convinced he had heard something outside. Not footsteps, not knocking, just the sense that something had been close. In the morning, the footprints were back. They were clearer this time, deeper and closer together, as if whoever made them had been walking slowly. They ended in the same place, right at his door. Again, there were no prints leading away. A thin line of unease crept into his thoughts. He checked his locks, he checked the windows. Everything was secure. He told himself snow played tricks on the mind, that isolation exaggerated fear. Still, he did not brush the footprints away this time. Instead, he marked the last one with a stick, pushing it into the snow so he would know if anything changed. That night, the forest was silent in a way he had never heard before. No wind, no animals. Even the fire seemed reluctant to crackle. Lars lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to his own breathing. Hours passed. Just before morning he heard it, a soft crunch, not repeated, not followed by another, just one sound, like a careful step. When daylight came, the footprints had moved. They now stopped closer to the door than before, the final impression overlapping the mark he had made in the snow. Lars felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold. Whoever, or whatever, was leaving the footprints had not walked away. It had come closer. He packed a bag that morning, intending to leave for the village. But as he stepped outside, his phone lost signal completely. The road was impassable, buried under drifting snow. Winter had closed in faster than expected. He was trapped. That night he set up a camera facing the door. The footage showed nothing unusual for hours. Snow drifting, shadows shifting as clouds passed the moon. At 2:41 a.m. the camera flickered. The image distorted for less than a second. When it stabilized, the footprints were suddenly closer, appearing where there had been none before. No movement, no figure, just new impressions in the snow, as if reality itself had skipped a step. By the fourth morning, the footprints stopped directly at the threshold. Lars did not open the door. He began to feel watched even inside the cabin, as though the walls had thinned. The air felt heavier near the entrance, colder, as if winter itself was pressing against the wood. He dreamed of walking through snow that swallowed his legs, of following footprints that looked like his own. On the fifth night, he heard breathing, not loud, not desperate, just slow and patient, coming from the other side of the door. Lars backed away, every instinct screaming at him not to look, not to open it, not to acknowledge whatever waited there. He sat awake until morning, clutching a knife he knew would be useless. When dawn came, the footprints were gone. For a moment, relief flooded him so strongly his knees weakened. Then he saw something worse. A new set of footprints began inside the cabin. They led from the door toward his bedroom. Lars fled that morning, forcing his way through snowdrifts, ignoring the pain in his lungs, the way the forest seemed to close in around him. Search teams later found the cabin abandoned, the doors standing open, snow drifting inside. They found only one set of footprints. They led into the forest. They never came back.